Hello and welcome to Happy Horror Time. My name is Tim Murdoch.
And my name is Matt Emmert. When you think of typical horror movie settings, I have a feeling a cabin in the woods comes to mind for most people. And both of today's special guests know a little something about that environment, as they're the writer, director, producer, and star of a new horror comedy that just so happens to be called, wait for it, Another Cabin in the Woods movie. The film was just released on Friday, November 8th on Tubi and several other horror streaming services. And if the name of its writer, director, producer sounds familiar, it's probably because we've had him on the show before, as he also is the producer of all four House LLC films, along with the upcoming fifth installment. Please welcome to the podcast, Joe Bandelli and Duane Cooper.
Woo!
Hi, guys. How's it going?
Great. We're doing that thing where we're both speaking at the same time. Sorry.
You go.
I was so excited to be called a star that I was just like, yes, it's great. It's great to be here. I'm doing very well.
You are a star.
Totally.
And Joe, how's it going?
You're gorgeous too. Let's take a second and look at. I know the audience can't see this, but this stunning man, he gets more beautiful with age.
We will take a screenshot so everyone can see how stunning Duane is. Well, and Joe, you're kind of a regular on Happy Horror Time. How does it feel to be called a regular, by the way?
Usually I would say that's a bad thing, but I feel like it's a good thing. Like I love my chats with you guys, and I feel good about this.
It's like you're like Norm walking into Cheers.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Hello,
like...
dated reference. Oh, wow, Tim's old. Anyway. Okay, so here's the thing. Since we've had Joe on the show before and talked all about his background in episode 83, so check it out if you want to learn more about Joe's background. We're going to start with Duane. Duane, tell us about yourself. Like, where are you from and how did you first get involved in acting?
So originally I'm from Jamaica. So I was born and raised in Jamaica, the island, not Queens, New York. And Although, so then born and raised in Jamaica till I was 12. Then I moved to Montreal and lived in Montreal for 4 years. And when I was 16, moved to Jamaica, Queens.
That's funny.
Yeah. So that's pretty funny. A lot of Jamaicans over here. I went to school for business, oddly enough, but I was always a class clown. And then in business school, I started seeing posters to audition for plays. And I was like, I think I want to do that. So I auditioned for my first play, didn't get it, but I was still excited. I was like, oh, okay, I have to get better then. And I'll just wait for the next one. So by the fourth play, I was the lead, and people were saying nice things about me. My sister, my family were big fans. We're always encouraging. So I asked the director of the last show I did, or actually the director said to me, I think you should consider this as a career. So I feel like most people try to convince other people when they feel like going into this business. I had people actually telling me, I should consider it. And that's all I needed to hear. So I walked straight out of college, asked her what was the best conservatory to go to. And she said Neighborhood Playhouse, which is a Meisner school. And yeah, I walked right out of college and then called up Neighborhood Playhouse and was like, when can I come audition? And I auditioned, got in. And that's how I got into a more professional career as an actor.
Wow.
And growing up, were horror films on your radar? Any that had an impact on your life forever?
Not really.
Oh my God, get him off the show.
Duane, you
I
promised.
didn't think about that. I was like, I'm not,
No, it's okay.
But I do, as I was thinking about this, I was like, what do I talk about? But in Jamaica, voodoo is taken really seriously. I know people who have gotten a letter full with like a feather and some powder with a curse put on them. So, we took that. I always took that shit kind of seriously. And then I remember we had like 3 channels in Jamaica. So, you watch whatever was on, and we got the Hulk. And I remember watching Lou Ferrigno's Hulk as a young kid and being terrified to the point where I jumped off the couch and ran and hid behind the couch until he turned back into Bruce Banner. So I don't actively seek out horror.
That's so funny. We've definitely never gotten that as an answer for a horror movie.
Exactly. So
Jaws 4, the whole premise is that supposedly there's a curse and there's a voodoo shark. Like, did you guys know that? Fun fact.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a Jaws 4.
Oh,
Yeah. Also, the entire Child's Play series with Chucky, you know, the doll, is based off of him doing voodoo and transferring his,
Needles. Yeah.
Dewey Dumbella.
Yes, exactly. Well, Joe, I don't think we ever talked with you about this specific fact relating to your background, but on your IMDb page, it says you first became interested in directing after seeing Dumb and Dumber. So what about Dumb and Dumber inspired you to want to direct films?
Well, thank you for asking, guys. That's a very great question. Best podcast of all time. So I grew up, I think most of my roots from growing up, obviously I'm immersed in the horror community. You guys are immersed in it as well. But like, once you get into this world, once you get into the horror world, you start realizing how much smaller it is than it actually like feels when you're on the outside. And the thing that I've noticed with like horror fans is like they're diehard horror, or you have people that are diehard comedy or diehard this. I've always felt like I was a diehard fan of films. And I remember like when I'm with my horror friends, like we're talking about the, like, you know, Dead Alive and like Evil Dead and all the weird like movies we watched in the 80s. But like, I look at like Sylvester Stallone and Schwarzenegger, and I grew up on those movies too. And then I grew up on all of like Gene Wilder's stuff and Richard Pryor's stuff. So like I had kind of this whole like background of all these different things. And for me, I've always been interested in like dry humor, and like I always call it literal humor, but it's kind of like the humor of what they do in Airplane, where everyone plays it straight and like there's shitty chaos and all this stuff's happening around. But when I saw Dumb and Dumber and the Farrelly brothers put that out, like obviously Jim Carrey was on the rise, and like I was a huge In Living Color fan, so I loved him, loved Ace Ventura. A lot of people who aren't film people or general audience people love that movie, and they always tend to say, "Oh, I love it because it's so stupid." And like when I watched that movie, I thought the opposite. I was like, I love that movie because it's so smart. And I felt like it took two really, really smart guys to cast the right people and to bring the right team around, because those jokes just land so well and the timing is so good and the performances are so good. And it was the first time that I saw something where I was like, oh shit, like I'm kind of similar to Duane. I'm a class clown. Like I'm always like trying to get laughs out of people. Like that's something I want to do. And I realized like I've known like famous directors. I knew Scorsese, I knew Spielberg, I knew Hitchcock, but that was like the first time I was like, oh, the Farrelly brothers, like who are they? And that's when I started kind of figuring out. And again, I was young. It came out in 94, so I was 10. So I just started figuring out like, oh, filmmakers and all this kind of stuff. And that kind of began my whole, like, I think this might be something I want to do, even though I did a whole bunch of other shit before I actually got into film.
And Joe, since there's a lot of cabin in the woods movies, like movies that take place in a cabin, which one's your favorite?
Yeah.
13 Part 4, the final chapter?
No, because we already asked you the whole question about like what are the horror movies that made an impact on you, but because this is specific, are there any cabin in the woods movies that made a major impact on you?
Yeah, I think the three biggest ones that have had the impact on me would be Friday the 13th is the most obvious one.
Sucking up to Tim.
I know, right?
You already have me.
I know. It was just Halloween recently too, so I should be sucking up to Matt. No, I think like for me, when I really started immersing myself in horror films, I always call them the big three, like Freddy, Jason, and Michael. And like that's kind of, so like Friday the 13th was the big cabin in the woods movie for me. And then after I like sort of started my roots in horror, the next two that pop out to me the most are Evil Dead 2. Because that was again blending in that element of comedy, which I thought is really brilliant, and Sam Raimi and what's his name, Bruce Campbell were phenomenal with the humor. And then to be fair, even though people think this movie that we did is similar and it's not, Cabin in the Woods. I thought that was a really I love Drew Goddard. I thought the way they made like that movie's a horror comedy to me, and I think they did a phenomenal job with it, and it's not a parody, but they did kind of make fun of the cabin in the woods genre. And that was an idea, you know, that kind of sparked some of the why this went in that direction as well.
Wait, Duane, I have to ask, have you seen the original Halloween or the original Friday the 13th? And you can be honest.
Yes.
Oh, good.
A long time ago. I was going to say to Joe's point, you know, I love movies, so I watch everything, you know? And when I saw Cabin in the Woods, it was really refreshing. I thought, oh, that the turn or the subversion toward, like spoiler alert, what happens, I was like, oh, this is a really refreshing way to keep this type of movie new and fresh.
Oh yeah.
Right.
No,
And yeah,
100%.
Ever.
and just to add on to that, like I think when Cabin in the Woods came out, like there's always been horror comedies, but like I think when Cabin in the Woods came out, the only other movie that I thought that came out that sort of did something similar was Shaun of the Dead. So like I felt like that was like, and the horror parody world is like there's not many of those out there. So
Yeah.
Cabin of that audience.
Yeah. So shifting gears to another Cabin in the Woods movie, which I love that you just mentioned Cabin in the Woods, and your film's called Another Cabin in the Woods movie. So this is, like you said, this is very much a horror comedy. And by the way, we were laughing out loud many times.
Yeah.
Like out, and when you see LOL, like we were actually LOLing, no joke. So by the way, if you haven't seen this movie yet, for listeners, pause this interview because we are going to be asking them about like specific plot points. You can go watch it on Tubi for free, and then you can come back and listen and not have anything spoiled. So this is your warning. We rarely give spoiler alert warnings because we usually just spoil
wait,
everything.
we're going to start in an hour and a half right now.
Yeah, so we're going to just tick right now. It's actually an hour and 17 minutes, I think. Okay.
Correct.
Commercial.
Come on.
Somebody did their homework.
I did my homework. So first off, Joe, we got to start with, where did the idea for this movie come from? Like, had you always wanted to write a horror parody? I feel like I know the answer to this because you literally just said you love horror and comedy, but I'm going to let you answer the question.
Yeah. So I basically wrote this film. We shot this a while ago. So I wrote this film with my old writing partner, Matthew Wise, who plays Grant in the film. We wrote it together, and the whole thing was intended for it to be a horror comedy. And I think we had a couple things in the script that were like laugh out loud silly. But we always wanted it to be a horror comedy. We shot it as a horror comedy. I think all of the actors knew it was a horror comedy. And there were elements of the performances and the way I directed it that sort of opened it up for post-production for us to kind of lean it a little bit more into the parody side of things. And it kind of worked too, because the thing that I love about like Airplane and like the Leslie Nielsen Naked Gun like franchises, again, I don't like Scary Movie's awesome. I love Scary Movie. It's one of my favorite parody movies. But I think there's one element that changes it from being like up there as like the best, or like could live in the world of where Airplane is. And it's unfortunately, because I love him so much as an actor, it's Marlon Wayans' character, because every other person in that movie plays it straight. Like even Sean Wayans, when he's playing like the overtly over the top homosexual, he's playing it so straight, and everyone's playing it so straight. But Marlon Wayans' character Shorty is like giggling and laughing so over the top that like that Scary Movie franchise and a lot of other franchises that came off of that had that over the top silliness, craziness, wackiness. And I think the thing that I like about like Leslie Nielsen stuff and Airplane and Zaz and all that kind of stuff is no one ever really did that. They did have one in Airplane, but like still, it still worked within that world. And I think one of the things that we kind of developed was, if we never tell the cast that this is a parody, they're all playing it straight. And that kind of falls into the whole element of like, they'll never know that they'll be that we're actually making fun of them or their stereotypes while we're doing this. But to that point, and Duane, you can jump in here too if you feel differently. I think we very much told you, and when I was directing, when I was like getting ready and casting and going through everything, I pretty much told everyone that they were playing archetypes and stereotypes, and we were trying to like make fun of those or poke fun at those things. So it was never, like when we have the Trish character, she's supposed to be the same character that you've seen that's like the over the top slutty girl in every movie that gets naked. Like that was purposeful.
Yeah, and I figured, Duane, you play Carter, who arrives at the cabin with his girlfriend Trish to attend the wedding of his friend Grant. And now Carter and Trish, like Joe was saying, are sort of like the stereotypical sex-obsessed characters that every horror film has. In fact, in your very first scene, you're basically getting roadhead from Trish while listening to a meditation tape. So how did you first get involved in the film, and what were your initial thoughts on the character of Carter?
I feel very fortunate that Joe involved me very, very early on. And we did something that's unheard of today. We did a table read and then rehearsed in an actual space that Joe was very deliberate about measuring out. And, the prep The pre-production work Joe put in, like, hats off to you, Joe, because I don't think there's opportunity to work like that anymore, honestly. But we made a short film together. That's how we met, through New York Film Academy. We did a short film. And after that, we became great friends. And he said he was working on this and had me in mind for the character from the beginning. So I felt really privileged and like I had a head start, essentially, to really understand what it was and to get excited about it and be as prepared as, an actor can be before starting a thing, because now I've never had that experience
That's
since.
awesome. So you guys already had a relationship. So you didn't have to like audition. You kind of picked him for the part, Joe?
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Duane and I, my first, like my thesis film when I graduated film school, I was casting like the party boy in like a kind of over the top comedy thing that I did. And I would get person after person after person that would come in. And it was like very specific. I said like good looking and like the guy that everyone wants to either be friends with or have sex with. Like that was kind of like a big part of the description. And man, I can't tell you the amount of people who came in who like, holy shit, they were not attractive or not funny or not charismatic. And I remember being like, how is this the hardest role to cast? Like literally, I was like, this should be the first person we cast. But funny enough, that short film, the first person that I cast in it was Matt Wise, who went on to be my writing partner and play Grant. And the last person that I cast in it, who came in very last minute, and I was like, yes, this is what I wanted, was Duane. And since then,
and you're
I've
friends with
Duane.
So apparently Duane is the type of person you want to become friends with because you are friends with.
And we fucked.
And
so,
you
managed to get it all out of the way.
Wow, so he just fits the bill for both of them.
Oh dear. And Joe, where was this filmed? Where is this cabin in the woods?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So I think for those who don't know, I tend to really try to focus a lot of my attention in the tri-state area. And for those who know, like we shoot all the Hell House movies in Pennsylvania. And so I did the same thing. We shot primarily most of this in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. And then we did a little in Lehighton, which is where we shot the original Hell House as well.
Oh, so you mean, so how did you find the cabin? Did you just like stumble upon it? Were you looking at Airbnbs? Like, how did you find this cabin?
I mean, we were doing everything. Matt and I, and then our cinematographer, Carlos, we were just like every weekend for like 6 months or 8 months. We were going to places. We went to upstate New York, went to New Jersey. We were just looking for places. And then I, the contact that we had, who was the actual haunted house attraction that we shot in for Hell House, Angie, Moyer, I reached out to her and she actually helped me find some of these spaces. And that's how we kind of got things going with this.
While filming, did you stay in the actual cabin?
Another unheard of, sorry to jump in, Joe, but I'm like, yeah, I went up there. We went up there for, at least I was up there for like 3 to 4 weeks. I know you guys stayed longer to finish, after I was dead. Spoiler alert. But yeah, again, it was such an ideal experience for an actor because we were we were out of our comfort zone in a sense, but put in an artistically comfortable zone. So it felt like camp to a certain extent, like we were away at summer camp, but then also doing something really fun and it was easy to show up every day,
Well, Duane, speaking of comfortability, you have, being the sex-obsessed guy in the film, you have a big sex scene with Trish before the power goes out. I was just wondering, I've always wondered, like with actors, how awkward is it to film that kind of scene? Or did Joe have any techniques to make you and Allison Mackenzie Wells, who plays Trish, feel more comfortable while doing like a naked sex scene?
Yeah, well, he stood in for Trish to like, no, I'm joking. That's how
we rehearsed that scene for like 4 days.
For like 4 hours straight, no cameras, no one else, candles. It was
so odd.
Come to think about it now, because there's so much talk about intimacy coordination that just kind of wasn't as prevalent or non-existent, I think, back then. We weren't thinking about it, but we were very much aware that this needed to feel like a safe space. Everyone needed to be comfortable, closed set scenario, especially for Trish. And we all got along, so we talked about it. And, the most uncomfortable part is like the little cock thing, the cock sock thing,
So they're really,
that was a challenge.
You gave him a cock sock, Joe?
The cock sock was a challenge. because they make an invisible wire, but then we could see the wire. So we had to cut the wire and then tape the pouch to the thing. So then I'm like, oh man, if this pouch falls off, there's going to be contact, but
I mean, there is footage. There is footage with it falling off, just for the record.
like, there's nuts. There's a cut of this. But
You just said this is nuts.
No, with nuts, he said. So the unrated cut it
has nuts.
has nuts. I figured, so Joe, you played director and intimacy coordinator then.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we didn't have an intimacy coordinator, but like I was really, 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 really like staying on top of the fact. Like Duane said, I did a lot of prep on this, and I really wanted to do. This is the first feature that I directed, so this was something that I took really personal. I wanted to make sure that I really like put in a lot of the time and the effort to like make sure actors were comfortable. And it was really hard to cast that role because of the nude scene. But when I met Allison, we had many conversations where we went through what it was going to look like, how it was going to be there. And I told her about the closed set. She felt, I mean, I don't want to speak for her, but it felt like she felt so comfortable on set. That, originally, I think when we were rehearsing, I was like, wear your robe the entire time. And by the time we started rehearsing, she's like, I don't need this anymore. And it was like it was a comfortable environment. And I don't think we put anyone, like, truthfully, I think we did have some suspect moments when we were shooting kill scenes. But me being a piece of the movie too, I also put myself through that. Unfortunately, though, I'm sure we'll get into it, but unfortunately, when we shot the character that I played, Jay's death scene, I knew it was going to be a hard death scene to shoot. And I purposely put myself in that position so that the other actors could see, oh, wow, look at what Joe's willing to do. Like, he's not willing to he's not going to put me through something that he's not willing to go through himself. And then, of course, I scheduled it on a day that no one else was working. So,
Nobody saw it.
And Duane, what was it overall like to work with Joe as a director?
Oh, it's great. I've been waiting to do something again like this ever since. Like, he knows that. We talk about it all the time. He's my auteur. I hope I'm one of his muses.
You're my muse. You are definitely my muse.
Yeah, this is a lifelong, not just friendship, but ideally creative partnership as well. I want to be making films with Joe as long as we're both able to.
That's awesome. What a great compliment, Joe.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, it's a two-way compliment. Like, I think a lot of times when you guys meet actors, and especially people that are like earlier in their career and young and up and coming, you start hearing people be like, oh man, the audition process sucks. And like, I make a mental note, like, if that person doesn't strike gold right away, they're done. Like, they're not going to be an actor in 5 years or 10 years or whatever. Like, Duane is probably the only person I've ever met that truly, I believe, is like lives the artist's life and actually enjoys auditioning. And like, to me, he's already successful, but I know he's going to continue to be more successful. And I feel like I'm lucky that I get to put him in my movies and he gets to work with me, because he's the first. I mean, that said, I had a lot of great actors on it, but that was like the first time I directed someone that was consistent, that took direction well, that made the changes. And it was just like Duane said, this is a lifelong bond that we have. I hope he's in every movie I ever make. Obviously, I've made movies without Duane in them. And he's been in movies that haven't been directed by me, but I know that every time I write something, every time I'm gearing up for something, I'm always considering him, because I think he would make anything I'm doing just that much better.
And there was an in-person audition, right? It wasn't a self-tape?
No,
we didn't audition.
Got
it. Got it.
Well, first off, I love that. I love the love.
By the way, Joe, Joey B, I love you.
Thank you, Duane.
Oh, no, look, no, you hang up. No, you hang up. Look, no, you hang up. So Joe, one of the things we absolutely loved about this film is the commentary that is heard in the background throughout. So for listeners, you have to listen closely, but there's basically a news team that's commenting on the film at different parts with lines like, and I wrote some of these down because they were so funny. If I had to guess, the black guy's about to get some, and then somebody's dying. And you even have a phone operator who says, we're sorry, there's no service in this horror movie. And later, yep, you guessed it. Still no service, asshole. Hang up and get the fuck out of here. So what I wanted to ask was, what inspired you to have this commentary throughout the film? And how did you decide, like, which lines you were going to have make sure were blatantly heard versus which would be kind of hidden under the main dialogue?
Right. And this is kind of why I say that like you got to work with people that you trust and love. Like that was something that we built in post. And for anyone who's seen Hot Shots, or I think Hot Shots Part Two,
Oh, I
the
love
thing
them
that
both.
awesome, right? But the thing that I always reference is there's jokes in those types of movies where you know they were written beforehand and they brought it in. And then there's jokes that like it was very clear that this was something that came later, but it's still absolutely hilarious. Like I think in the scene, it's when they find Charlie Sheen and they knock on his teepee and you hear like all of the locks opening up and the chains being moved or whatever. And then he just pops his head out from the teepee. Like that was built in post. Yeah. And I think when we were kind of going through the edit and figuring this out, my then editor, who I eventually brought on as a writer of this because of what we're talking about, a writer producer, was Nick Landa. He had a really funny idea about the meditation scene when we're introduced to the Carter character and the Trish character, because I thought it was funny the way we shot it, and I thought it was funny, but I felt like we're missing something and like it could be funnier. And he brought in the whole like meditation thing of like it being self-aware. And the second he said that, that just opened up all the possibilities. And I was like, this is where we should go with this. And again, this is why I say like, if you have the right people in place, like part of me wishes Matt and I had Nick earlier and we would have put a lot of this stuff in there. But also that being said, I think if a lot of this stuff was in the script, I think the actors would have played it differently. And I'm glad that they didn't, because it wound up building these things. And then I'm kind of like a little kid with those kinds of things. Like if you say like, here's an inch, I'm going to take 7 miles. And so I remember when we were kind of going through this stuff and figuring out and bringing in actors to play these voices and everything, we were talking about there's moments in the scene where there's gaps, and those are the moments that we can put those jokes in there and fill those moments. And that Nick was like, yeah, so in this like 4-minute long scene, we only need 2 jokes. And me being the psycho that I am, I was like, no, I was like, someone somewhere is going to be able to at some point hear, even when the actors are talking, because we made it very clear that like when the scene and like the characters are developing, the plot is unfolding, we never had that stuff overpower it. It was always in the background and it always got more muted. But then when there were dips and like that's when it would come back up. So I actually started writing full on scripts for everything that was said in that 4-minute scene. So there's a lot of jokes in the movie. And I know you guys probably watched it like once. Matt, you might have watched it twice.
I watched it more than once. How dare you?
But there's jokes in there, and there's so many jokes that like, again, like when you said go watch it on Tubi, my recommendation to everyone is turn those speakers up. Like you're
and
gonna
turn
get a
on the
different
sub. And what I can say is turn on subtitles, because the subtitles don't catch every. It's like subtitles will catch whatever is the main line, but there's some of the commentary lines that are said when it's silent. There's some that the subtitles aren't going to catch, and you have to listen.
Sometimes, like what we were watching The Golden Bachelorette. It said niece. And like it changed everything
when it was supposed to say like Denise. Like subtitles aren't 100% correct. But what I was going to ask, well, speaking of, since you're talking about like putting a lot of this in post, Duane, did you have any idea of what the added commentary would be saying when you were making the film, or did you just hear it all for the first time when you saw the final cut?
The latter. I heard, and then much like you, I watched it again immediately, and I think, instead of turning the speakers all the way up, just keep watching the movie. It's what, like, I had such a good time, and I think it's so fun that, and what's brilliant about the commentary is I think it's going to make people want to watch this multiple times, and they're going to laugh at something different every time, which is an incredible feat to accomplish. So short answer is I had no idea. And I think Joe's right. I think if I knew how funny it could be if we leaned 1,000% into the parody of it, because I didn't approach it like a parody. Even though I know I was a stock character, I was taking it very seriously, because it was also my first big role in a feature film, and I want to show up for Joe and I want to do it justice. So I was taking it very seriously. There's a scene where I break down, and I remember Joe coming over, and I'm just like, just everyone giving me space to like get into a zone. Not that I was going method or anything, but I was very focused and wanted to do a great job. So I think if I knew that, I may have, like Joe said, I may have taken my foot off the gas a little bit and, lowered the stakes, whether either intentionally or subconsciously. So I'm glad I didn't know. It's like I was watching scenes and like, Like I remember this, but man, oh man, it felt like I was watching a new movie. It was really
And
an
and
experience.
and just to that point, like my composer Carl, who's phenomenal, when we started working on this, he thought it was so funny, and he was like, "Do you want to go funny with the music?" And I was like, "Absolutely not! Like the music should never be funny, like because if we have scenes that are funny and then the music is also telling you that it's funny." The jokes go away. Like, so the one thing that I feel really grateful about this, and if I go on to do more of these, which I do want to do more, this is not the type of movie that like I'll do everything to make sure that I retain creative control and final cut on these types of movies. Like I made some mistakes in my career where I kind of signed away final cut or whatever. And I know that the more people you get involved to finance things, the more you have to kind of be forgiving of that. This only works because I was able to like play out what I thought was funny and what Nick, my editor, thought was funny. And we got to bounce ideas off of one another and play that. I think if we had 12 other people involved in the process, it would have been like, oh, change this because this is funnier, change this because this is funnier. And like, I'm not trying to be an asshole, but like as a director, you have to trust your gut on certain things. This whole film business is a collaboration. And like, I needed Duane to bring his ideas and things together so that we can build the Carter character. I needed, you know, my cinematographer, Carlos, my production designer, Joe, like we needed this collaboration to get it to where it was. But when it got time for the jokes, like I had to trust my instinct on that. And I know that there are people who said like, oh, that's not funny, you should do this. And I just had to trust what I thought was funny and play that out.
And
It's
Duane,
also so easy to get into the trap of trying to one up the scenes, then become about telling the funniest jokes all the time.
And that, right.
And I can always tell in a movie, even if most of it is good, I can always tell, oh, they were just improving. They were like, fuck story, fuck continuity. Let's just keep lobbing fucking punchlines. And I think this coming in post allowed us to actually play the funny moments, the funny circumstances.
was there a moment that you were most surprised by?
Like the edits, like in terms of when you watched the final cut, were there any edits that you
out for you?
Yeah, that really surprised by? Or
me personally, it was anytime there was a fart sound. I appreciate nothing more than a fart sound.
But no, it's, you know, but to be serious on the fart sounds, what was so beautiful about how you added them in, Joe, is
so
that
beautiful.
It was so obvious that they weren't playing, Grant was not playing that as that he had farted. So when you add the sound effects in, and it's like the actor didn't even know he farted, it makes it even funnier, you know?
The last fart, door half open. I lost my shit. His face is so earnest.
I mean, listen, when we did that, we were very much like, we didn't put any farts in because like, as much as like we were putting the jokes, we didn't want to do that. Like we figured like fart and dick jokes are kind of like lowbrow humor. We're like, let's not do that.
You mean my favorites?
Yeah.
Right. But you know, I also like, to Duane's point, I always like story is the most important thing to me. Like I think story will overcome bad shooting, bad directing, bad performances, bad cinematography. It will always overcome that. And so story was always the most important thing, as silly as this was. And like when we were just like watching it laugh through, Nick loves fart jokes, and he didn't even like think to put it in there because he knows I'm like, no, like that makes it something different, and I didn't want to go there. And then when we got to that one scene, we were like, oh man, they're like, this is great. And then we added it.
Yeah, because there's like a whodunit story going on.
Well, there's also one little edit I wanted to call out that happened in the scene, Duane, with you and Grant, played by Matt. When he keeps repeating the line, well, I guess she's no Trish, and you say like, why don't you say it in my face? Well, I guess she's no Sis. Why don't you say it again? And as they're walking out, I know, Joe, you added that in post. The one last, well, she's no Trish. It's like little things like that were so funny, and I know the actors had no idea you were going to put that in, right, Duane? Like, right?
No,
but it
I had
worked.
no idea.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Joe,
it's not like Mel Brooks. It's like that specific jokes like that. I was like, oh man, this like we managed to somehow find like a Mel Brooks type of parody humor, which I didn't expect. I wasn't thinking about the humor in that specific way.
Yeah,
and that worked beautifully.
Yeah. I think the that made me laugh about that is later on in the movie when Beth has her freak out, that moment, the meteorologist on the radio says she's definitely no Trish. That's for sure.
She's definitely no Trish. It's just like, I just loved that, because that to me was like a joke that was in the script that you guys knew, but then you took it that extra bit by adding in the commentary. But Joe, you touched on this, but I wanted to get to this because in addition to writing, directing, and producing the film, you also play a role in it. The wedding officiant and major pervert, Hector Manuel Gonzalo Domingo III, also known as Jay. Now,
why is anyone friends with you?
Well, no. My question is, what attracted you to playing this role, and why did Grant and Sarah want this perv to officiate their wedding?
Oh, absolutely. This is an easy one. So I've said this. I don't know if I said it to you guys before, but I've said this many times. I don't consider myself an actor. I know that I have a sketch comedy background. I have a lot of theater background when I was younger, but I don't consider myself a trained actor. Usually when I'm writing,
don't sell yourself short.
You were funny, yeah.
Thank you. But I think what I did was a lot of the times when you're writing, you tend to put a lot of you into characters, and I think the reason why I love working with Duane and the reason why I think we get along so well is usually when I write the characters that have the most, I'll take a trait that I have and put it into a character and then kind of play it a little over the top. And that character usually winds up being the character that's most like me. So that was Carter. And so I was that's written about me, but kind of for Duane. And I feel like Duane would have crushed it in that. But then when when Matt and I wrote this character, Jay, it was supposed to be a comic relief. It's supposed to be in and out quickly. And maybe this is just from me at that point not being great in casting, but I feel like I've auditioned so many people. Comedy, people always say comedy is a difficult thing, and I always say comedy is difficult if you're not funny. If you're funny, it's not that difficult. And what I found is, when you're building a performance or when you have an actor building a performance, you're not just saying be funny. You're explaining the situation, you're trying to build the performance out of them. And there are lines with Jay, and there are moments where it's and you guys, I'm sure, have seen Will Ferrell movies, Steve Carell movies, where it's this scene or this moment is just about the joke. It's not about why is this character doing this? Where did they come from? And I found that when I was auditioning that role, no one got the funny. No one got that it was okay, your role in this scene is to deliver that funny line and break the tension. That's the point.
You auditioned people for that role?
I did, yeah. I auditioned it, yeah.
How were they at going,
It's just it's not that wasn't in the script. That was all up here. I have this thing that when I am in a scene with people like Duane and Nicole Payson and Clea Alsip, I'm in the scene with them and I'm these people are so much better than me. So I think my nervous tendency when I am working with people that I know are significantly more talented than me in the acting side of things is to have these little mannerisms and these little things, because I know when I watch movies, it's never the joke. In Ace Ventura, that movie is so funny. But my favorite moment in Ace Ventura is when he's walking to the bathroom at the party and he walks by the orchestra and the one guy's playing the violin and he just pulls his arm down that. And it's so quick and he probably improv that. But that type of stuff makes me giggle. So I usually put little things in the characters that I'm playing to sort of be these if my performance is terrible, at least my will be kind of creepy and weird. So I'm just going to be the entire time. And then it kind of became what it became.
And I guess I know the answer to this, but I'll let you answer it. Do you enjoy being behind the camera or in front of the camera?
More
behind, so much more behind. Yeah. If I don't have to be in the movies, in front of the lens for the movies I do, I would always prefer that. But I kind of think over the course of my career, we've done 4 Hell House movies and I'm in all of those movies. I've directed 3 features. I'm in all of those movies. It's sort of becoming a mini calling card for me to have one moment in the things that I do. So I do enjoy that. I do having that moment and being a little comic relief here and there when I can.
So, your character, Jay, ends up being the killer's first victim, getting an arrow in the dick after a classic peeing in the woods scene. But before his demise, he gets in a fight with Duane's character, Carter, after he forces himself on Carter's girlfriend, like a model citizen. So, Duane, what was it like beating the shit out of Joe? And did you guys choreograph that fight?
Yeah, we did. I'm not sure if KZ was there for that or we just, because
Kazi.
it was a Kazi,
Kazi,
sorry.
yeah, our fight coordinator.
Oh,
Who's awesome, by the way.
Was he there for that?
No, he choreographed
it.
He choreographed it for us and like showed us stuff beforehand in pre-production, but we didn't have him on set for that. We had him on set for the bigger fight scene at the end of the movie, but we did go through it.
It was fine. I don't remember it being, because there's so much trust between us. I was just focused on like I wanted to feel like a real fight. I remember thinking about that, but I was, in terms of doing it with Joe, it felt very safe and very comfortable, and it ended up being gross too. It ended up being really kind of gross. Like I felt like because of that fight, we earned that first kill. It was the starting place of how we can ramp up the violence. Because, there's a story and a progression, upward progression of the violence as well. And I was like, oh, yeah, blood. Yeah, like, let's get it. Like, this is where it starts, actually. This should feel a little horrific.
Speaking of gross, Joe, what was it like filming your death scene?
Because I have to say, Joe, I think nobody watching this minded that your character got killed.
That was purposeful.
Yeah, I know.
That was very purposeful. My death scene was really hard. Like, I think my death scene was probably the second hardest death scene to film outside of Duane's death scene. My death scene, it was like, we made this movie to be a fall movie. We were hoping to shoot in early September. We wound up shooting in late October, early November. I don't know if it's obvious. It might be obvious when Grant goes to Walter's cabin in the film, like his breath is just like all like cold. Like it was like 30 to 40 degrees and I'm in the woods with my pants off and a t-shirt for probably like 12 hours and soaked in blood. It was hard. Here's a little fun fact for everyone, because we obviously had a little fun with visual effects. I am the person who pulls the trigger on the crossbow that shoots myself in the
Wow. Talk about a red herring in a weird doppelganger way. That's so funny. Okay.
Yeah.
And also,
but it was hard.
Those yellow boxer briefs, were they Batman or what was on them? What's the
I wish I had them with me right now. They are little stick figures in different weird sexual positions.
No way.
Oh, that was 100% Amira, our wardrobe person. Like when we were going through wardrobe and everything, she brought them into me and I was like, please let me wear this as Jay. And she's like, absolutely. So I think I had like 6 of them because we had to shoot it multiple times.
Right now.
I'm not gonna lie, I kept a pair and I still have them. They're falling apart, but I still have them.
Hilarious. And also Duane, well, he mentioned, what was it like filming your death scene? Because not only is it in the pouring rain, but you're on the ground reaching underneath a car and then you get axed to death. So I can't imagine it was comfortable.
Yeah, can I backtrack a little bit? Because I remember like a kind of geeky actor thing about the fight scene between Joe's character and my character. I don't think Joe encouraged it either, but I didn't want to constantly be looking in the monitor after a take and watching what I'm doing. And I think Joe's kind of the same way. He's like, just trust me. If I get it, I'll let you know. You don't need to be worried about that. But in terms of choreography like that and moments like that, it allowed me to understand why sometimes it's helpful to see how it looked, because that really helped me understand just technically what it needed to look like to look real. So that was a big learning moment for me doing that scene. But my own death scene, I remember telling Joe this story. First of all, it just felt really cool. We had some versions of how we were going to do it. Is it going to be a fire truck? Is it going to be this? And then are we going to have to drill holes in a thing? So just seeing that part of like that other side of creativity outside of what I'm doing, like, man, this was a really creative way. It looks so fucking real, but it was so cold. I finished that scene. I went into the bathroom. I took my clothes off and I swear to God, my dick had gone up inside my fucking body. I was like touching.
So let me guess,
her.
did you film the sex scene right after that one?
I don't know. That would have been a plan. That may have made it come back out, but it was. I'm telling you, I was like, I laughed. I was just looking in the mirror laughing, like, oh my God, where did it go? But it felt cool too. It's like, man, we really had to get creative because I think we had to go to a plan B, if I'm not wrong, Joe, where how we thought it was going to happen initially wasn't the way it ended up happening. So it was problem solving in real time. And I don't know, I felt like I was doing something really cool, even though the conditions were rough and everyone was really understanding about it. It's like as much as we could run back into the cabin, put on some robes, stand by a heater, and then go out. And then, I can't be mad because like seeing it as a part of like the poster or, like the shot is some of the shots are, I mean, the whole thing, Carlos shot the shit out of this, but it's like, it was worth it, so yeah, it's tough, but I think we got exactly what we were trying to get.
And Joe, you sicko, you made him wear a fully white shirt in the rain during that scene.
Man, what's funny? I knew the conditions were going to be tough, and I knew they were going to be hard because I knew I had an ambitious shot list when I was shooting that sequence. But I'll tell you what, man, I hope since we've made that movie that Duane, you advocate for yourself more because. Man, we put you through the ringer on that, and I always felt so bad afterwards because when there's a scene where he's like constantly, like when we were shooting it, he was like constantly spitting out, and I remember being like, "Why are you spitting the water out?" And he's like, "Because I'm choking on it." And I was like, "Fuck!" I was like, "Oh man!" And I'm like, "We're practically waterboarding you." We're like, "Holy shit, this is awful!" But the thing is, and this is again a tribute to Duane being Duane, he didn't complain or stop once, and again. I don't ever I've built at least on the producing side of things, I've built my career to be a safe producer. I would never put people in actors or crew in unsafe conditions. And that was one of those nights where it was just man, we did a lot of that. And Duane was a trooper for going through that. And he didn't complain once. And I learned a lot on the filmmaker side of things of hey, when you do these kinds of things, 2 takes, you're done. Get it in 2 takes, get it in 1 take, and then move on. And even moving further on in my career in the couple films that I've shot this year, when you bring fight coordinators and stunt people and everything on, you don't do the stunt 40 times. You don't have $100 million to make this movie. You do the stunt once or twice. So that's again where I feel a lot of people nowadays don't really do a ton of pre-production or rehearsal. I'm still one of those people who does do a lot of that. And I think it's important. And I think I wish it would have gone a different way because I felt bad about the conditions. But again, Duane was a trooper and that scene came out really well.
And yeah, I will say, I also felt because I knew I was the first, I wasn't the only one who had to shoot in the rain, but I was the first one. And I did feel empowered because I was happy to do it first. So that everyone else could, in the same way Joe wanted to, make his thing, his scene the hardest one, so we can see if he's willing to do it, it's going to be okay. So that was a part of what gave me energy too, is feeling oh, I can set an example of how, it's tough, but I don't know how else we're going to get it done. If we don't do it right, if we don't take the time to do it right, then why are we here? Why did we come up to the woods? But I do
Cabin in the
woods.
well, and you know what? And all joking aside, it's evident, Joe, how much you care about your actors and your production, and that you really aren't going to make them do anything they're uncomfortable with, and you can just tell the rapport
fun set
between you guys, and that I'm sure all the actors felt safe and comfortable, even if with tougher scenes to do. One thing I wanted to ask you about, Joe, and what I most appreciated, I think, about all the jokes in this film is that I felt like you didn't censor yourself at all, even though, we're living in a world today where people, especially on social media, can get so easily offended at everything. And so what I was wondering, and my question for you is, did that factor into your thinking at all when deciding what kinds of jokes to include? Or were you just like, fuck it, I'm going to make the movie I want to make with all the jokes I want to make no matter what?
I mean, I thought about that. I really did think about that. I think though like I wasn't offended. Like truthfully, if I was offending anyone in the movie, I was probably offending myself first and foremost. So like I think one of the things that I think is really tough, and like the times have changed, and like you obviously can't make certain jokes or talk about things a certain way, and rightfully so. The times have changed. We should change with them. But one of the things that I think I really like, that's why we did the poster the way we did. That's why we did the trailer the way we did, was like, I wanted to make sure that people knew that like we weren't taking ourselves too seriously. Like this world is already fucking crazy as it is. Like this film was meant to be something entertaining, and it was meant to be something that people can like take a break and giggle for an hour or 1 hour and 17 minutes, but who's counting? Like that was the point. So like a lot of the times, like, you know, like as an example, we make the joke about Carter being the only black character in the movie, and potentially, you know, like, what, is he going to die first, and kind of playing with that whole thing. Like I didn't hold back on that stuff, because to me that's the stereotype. Like those are the things. I'm not mocking something and like hurting or offending a person or like a group of people. I'm literally mocking the fact that in film history this is a thing, and like it's very noticeable by people that this is a thing, so why not make it funny?
Yeah, but that's what I think. That's what I really appreciated, is that I think in today's world, it's easy to, because people are so worried about offending someone, to take it to the other extreme and almost not even have or include humor that people could easily laugh at, or even shy away from, like mentioning things that everyone would find pretty much funny. And so I felt like you kind of just didn't, like I said, didn't censor yourself and included the kind of jokes that you wanted to see in a movie of this type. And I think that's respectable.
I was offended by the fart.
Well, listen, I'll say this. Like, Matt, you know this because we've talked about this. My character in one of the scenes when I storm off before I die, Jay calls Beth a dyke. And we didn't put it in there. And that was something we talked about for extensive time. And my partner was like, we shouldn't put this in there. We shouldn't offend them. And my whole thought process was, no, we should put it in there, because this character is offensive. Like this character he is a rapey character. Like I want the audience to be like,
to hate him,
kill this guy right now, and have it be funny. I toyed with it back and forth for a very long time. We ultimately decided to kill it because we felt like he's already very killable with the things. But so, even though it seems like I didn't censor myself, there were times when I was like, yeah, maybe we'll lose this, maybe we'll lose that. There was a couple jokes in the movie that were a bit over the top that we kind of cut. And like, again, this being kind of a horror parody, some of those jokes probably would have played well in that genre. But to me, it felt like, no, like it's too over the top. It's that Shorty from Scary Movie. Like, let's maybe pull that back and not go that way. So I think you're always, I don't think this is just anything to do with the times. I think just in general, like you're always trying to make sure it makes sense for the right audience and the best audience. But
to speak to what you're saying, as times are changing, like we also can't, as much as I said, like, you know, like people get easily offended, we also can't ignore that. So we also have to make sure we take that into mind. So I think it's good that you also kind of took that into mind and decided where to like put the line between what jokes you want to put in there with what jokes maybe don't need to be in there, maybe a little too offensive.
Right.
You know,
and now I can watch it with like my grandparents.
Yeah, exactly. Especially
you can all be farting. We'll drink some stores and we'll just be farting all over the place.
I was like, is this relatable?
I feel like anyone who's listening to this that hasn't watched this just thinks that there's like 150 farts in this movie.
I will speak to that. It's only a few, but the thing is that doing this podcast with Tim daily, Tim sends me Instagram fart videos. It's literally every video. So I knew Tim would appreciate the fart sound. So it's a very small part of this movie.
Fart sounds when we're watching television. So
anytime somebody bends over, Tim does a fart sound. So
I loved every second of it. And what do you both think this movie appeals to horror movie lovers or comedy lovers, or who do you think like will really zoom in on this?
I listened to another podcast recently that had Jordan Peele.
What? You listen to other people's podcasts?
Only one.
You're not allowed to listen to
any. I promise. It was only one. And I didn't even listen to the whole thing. I didn't even like it.
You only listen to the advertisement.
I listened to it on mute.
Anyway, you listened to, they had Jordan Peele on, a nobody.
And it's, they're giving him praise, and trying to see where his particular brand of horror lives. And they're like, it's actually new. There's actually, I don't know if it's like for hardcore or a specific demographic as much as it is an innovative take on the genre, as well as a combination of genres. And that's what this felt like to me. It truly felt like something new. The way it was funny, the like that fight scene at the end. Oh my God. I was like, oh, this looks like an action movie. You know, like the
Thank you. Thanks.
It was an intense fight scene at the end. Yeah.
It was an intense and a very well-earned fight scene. So I was like, oh man. And again, the way it was shot, the lighting, everything. So there's so many different elements from so many genres in this that it might sound cheesy, but I think if you love movies, like you will love this. You know, especially if you love, you know, a kind of dirty humor occasionally and, you know, and horror, you get all of that. But to me, it's something else. I wouldn't just call it a horror or a horror comedy.
I agree. It has such a rewatchability factor. Like it's a movie you want to watch over and over. And I always say that to Matt. I was like, if you know, some things are like I don't ever want to see again. This movie, I was like, oh, I can't wait to watch it again. Like you can watch it a lot.
That's awesome.
And for the fact that you'll catch so much more of the commentary and the edits and the jokes that are kind of underneath the main dialogue.
I mean, thank you guys all.
The music is so fucking good. You know what I mean? So I'm like, this
Carl.
is something.
Carl's the best.
This is something different.
And the guy that does the red herrings, that looks like the guy from
the Walter.
Yeah. What a dead ringer. You guys really good casting on him. As soon as he came on screen, awesome. I was like, whoa, he looks like the real
creepy. One. Well, yeah, what would you say, Joe? Like, do you think this will appeal more to horror lovers, comedy lovers, horror comedy lovers, movie lovers, fart lovers? What?
Definitely fart lovers.
So this is something that the Hell House franchise has taught me is you can do something good and some people will think it's great and some people will think it's terrible. And you could do something not so good, and some people will think it's great, and some people will think it's terrible. I'm very realistic. Like the one thing that I think is like a thing that I'm good at, that I don't know if everyone is good at this, but for me, I feel like it's one of my strengths is I'm really objective. Like I know like a lot of directors, they'll spend like weeks prepping something, like so much time shooting it, and then they get into post and it doesn't work, and they're like, no, we gotta have this in there. And if I did all that prep and all that time and whatever, and we got into post and it didn't work, I'd cut it. And like, I think I'm very realistic with what this movie is. And I think I learned from the Hell House movies in terms of not trying to please everyone because it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. But I think I learned from Unknown Dimension, the Paranormal Activity doc, is that when you're making something like this, like horror fans want to see the horror. Comedy fans want to see the comedy. And when I made that documentary, I still have very close friends and family who've never seen a movie that I've ever made. And a lot of times the reason why they haven't is because they don't like scary movies. And so when I made that documentary, the thing that I always said to them was, it's not scary. We're literally like peeling back the curtain to show you how those things were done. And it's more interesting. And I think with this movie, there are elements of like, we did shoot scare scenes. We did shoot kill scenes. So there is those elements of horror. And I think we will have the horror audience. But I think there's so much comedy in it too, that it is a movie that could bridge that gap and bring the comedy viewership, or even people who just want to like take a break and watch something funny or not too serious. I think we can get that audience. But I think, to be as objective as I possibly can, I think we are either going to get people who absolutely love this movie and think it's hilarious and like want more, or you're going to get people who are just going to hate it and say this isn't for me. Like it's going to be one of those two.
A whodunit factor,
nothing in the middle.
It's a thriller.
Yeah. No.
Well, this is what I describe this as, and like I haven't said this publicly to anyone, so I'll say it to you guys. This is your exclusive. I will say this. I'm not trying to sound super artsy and creative when I'm saying this, but basically, this movie and the intention of this movie is to be an original story, an original content, original creation. The whodunit, the murder mystery, that is an original story. That's not taking someone else's. Like again, we mentioned, because it has the cabin in the woods, there might be some confusion, people thinking we're parodying scenes from Cabin in the Woods in our movie. We're not doing that. So the content and the story is very original. The characters are what are stereotypes and play to tropes that you've seen in other things before. So that is the part that's parodying it with the self-commentary. So I don't, like, to Duane's point, I don't think we're in that world where we're in the scary movie world and we're doing things a certain way. Nor do I think we're in the like airplane world or like Naked Gun world. Like I think this is something different, and whether that's something different really good and yay, let's do more, or whether that's something really different and this is a one-time thing, it's yet to be determined.
Okay, so just a few more questions before we wrap up. So, Joe, I think our listeners would literally murder us if we didn't ask you at least a couple questions about the new House LLC film called House LLC Lineage. And I saw that you are actually in production right now. So you got to tell us, what can fans expect from the 5th installment? Please give us some bit of info that you haven't told that we can share with our listeners about the new film.
Sure. I will say this. We were very happy with the success of House LLC Origins. I think the title of it being Origins, we kind of got back to the origins of the roots of how we made the original one. So it felt really good. I will say this is going to be a different thing. And I think hopefully people will enjoy that. For those who love Supernatural, we have a lot of supernatural elements in it. And for those who love the gore, this is the goriest one.
Wow. Obviously, we're going to be seeing more of the clown, of course, right?
Matt, don't tell us.
Maybe.
Well, I mean, it's like, that's the iconic House LLC clown. Yeah, we people are clamoring for it.
And Joe, will this really be the last LLC Hell House?
Never say never is what I've always said to people, but this
Jamie Lee
is,
Curtis says that too.
I mean, listen, we, when we made the trilogy, we said that was the last one, and we made 2 more. So I will say this, because I know fans are going to get upset. This is intended to be the final chapter.
Okay.
It's cool.
Also, though, I mean, guys, getting to 5 movies in any fucking genre. Can we get a round of applause?
Yes. Are you kidding? That is a great, I mean, we can't.
Huge accomplishment.
It is a huge accomplishment. I mean, it's like,
I take all of the credit, and it was all me.
No, but I mean, really, like, first off, like, yeah, like Duane said, there aren't a ton of franchises.
Like, people always like, hey, when's the next one? When's the next one? Like, it's never enough.
No, but I mean, the 5th movie and also you're right, like the 4th movie Origins was really, really strong. We absolutely loved it. And, speaking of the House LLC franchise, Duane, we saw that you had a role in the 3rd film, Lake of Fire. So what was the experience like being in a House LLC film?
It was, I don't know how, can I say the story, Joey?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, the movie's been out.
I wasn't supposed to.
I was going to say, we're way past Lake of Fire. Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't supposed to be in it. It was Joe was in a tough spot, and it was like, get a call the night before, get on a train the next day, learn my lines on the train, go and shoot for that day. Then by the end of that day, I'm back home.
Wow.
Yeah, there was an issue with another actor. I don't know the full details, but so it wasn't, it was kind of the opposite of how we worked, how I worked on Another Cabin in the Woods, whereas I'm involved so much of the way. Even in post, he's sending me little bites of, listen to this bit, listen to this joke, where this one felt more like really a hired gun. They were like, they had an idea for the character, cast it, and then something happened, and I got the call from Joe, and he's like, hey, are you down? And I was like, I got you, buddy. And that was it. So I literally...
I was going to say, I like to keep you on your toes, because you told me you had such a good experience on the other one. The prep was awesome. The rehearsal was awesome. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do the exact opposite on this one.
Well, but what a trooper. It sounds like you came in and kind of saved the day for that part. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a scheduling issue, and we needed someone fast, and Duane came in and knocked it out of the park.
But now you're part of the House LLC franchise,
And what's
That's the first thing I got recognized for in LA.
Oh,
really?
Because there was a period when I like about a year into moving to LA, I think The Mask started to blow up even more, and or something was posted online where it started to trend. I feel like it was always trending up, and then for a couple of months it really spiked in popularity vis-a-vis The Mask and the franchise itself. And like, I walked into the smoke shop on my way to work, and the guy was like, hey man, you didn't tell me you were an actor. And I was like, oh, what the fuck is he like? What could you possibly have seen me in? And he was like, you were in Hell House. And I was like, holy shit, yeah. Yes, I was.
You're like, yeah, and I got no rehearsal.
We rehearsed on the train. So what's next for you? Any new projects?
Right now, I'm doing, because I moved back to New York recently, so I'm getting back into the indie theater scene. I'm actually headed to a rehearsal after this. I like weird, random physical theater. I'm a mime, And
Yeah, you are.
Oh,
Yeah,
shit.
Yeah, so this one is actually, speaking of masks, we're doing if you guys don't know what a larval mask is, just Google larval mask. They're really funky and weird and gross looking, and I've never done a full production doing mask work like that. So this is my first time getting into that. That's the thing and whatever Joe is doing, whatever else Joe is doing.
Well,
so right now I'm auditioning now and then, but yeah. Getting back to some indie theater.
Well, and then how about you, Joe? Like, what other projects have you been working on, and are there more horror parodies in your future?
I mean, I feel like I get this question every time I'm on any podcast. And most of the time I'm like, man, am I doing anything? Like, I feel like I'm not doing anything. This is the first time that I feel like it's going to sound like I'm bragging.
Go for it.
Go for it.
So
you're like, I've discovered a cure for this disease. I've tried.
So I've been very grateful. I know that obviously through the pandemic and the strikes and everything, not a lot of people were working, and we're still in the industry, still trying to get to a place where there's more consistent work for everyone. I've been very grateful to have a lot of work and doing hopefully decently well. But another Cabin in the Woods movie comes out next week, or it just came out. I don't remember the times, guys.
Just last Friday. Yeah.
There you go. On Tubi. So that I have a short film that's going to be in the festival circuit next year that stars Katie Parker from The Haunting of Hill House and Fall of the House of Usher. Next year, 825 Forest Road, which was the first narrative film that Stephen Cognetti directed and I produced for him, is going to be coming out next year. House LLC Lineage is going to be coming out next year. And then I just finished production a few weeks ago on this film called Imposters with the director Caleb Phillips, who made a few phenomenal shorts and won the jury award at South by Southwest a few years ago. And it's his horror feature debut. So we finished that, and that's starring Jessica Roth and from Happy Death Day and Charlie Barnett from Russian Doll. So got a lot of things in the works. And then I am I think the next one is the next feature that I'll be directing. And I don't know if it's between two right now. And yes, there is a potential chance for another movie coming soon.
I want another slasher horror movie. Joe, can we get that next?
I feel like I have the titles already, but I'm going to hold on to those for now. But I feel like with the success of Terrifier 3, I feel like everyone realizes slashers are very much in, and people want to see that kind of stuff.
I can't get enough.
We definitely can't get enough. Well, that's amazing. I mean, for both of you, I love Duane, that you're going more into theater and stuff. I loved doing theater in college, and I think theater is also a place where
it's get one shot and it petrifies me.
But you also get to continue to do the role over and over versus like in film, once you shoot it and you get it good, you're done. So I can see why actors gravitate toward theater. It's a great experience. And then Joe doing all of these films. We're glad that you're sticking with horror. We're glad you're still doing House LLC films. I know,
Joe, when you hear the words found footage, would you say you found it?
I would, Tim. I
would. I'm not going to let
only
us end
if
on
I can laugh like a maniac like you did after.
We're gonna count to 3 and do that again.
Hey, Joe, remember when you said some material is just funny and some material isn't?
It can't all land. Yeah.
Well, I'll let the listeners decide if that one landed. So we have one final question that Joe is familiar with, but Duane won't be because it's your first time on the podcast. We asked this to everyone, and I don't know exactly if you guys have done interviews for this film and specifically or what, but either way, the final question that we ask everyone is, what is one thing that you both can tell us about your experience? We're going to ask, working on this film, another Cabin in the Woods movie, that you've never told anyone else before, meaning anyone who's interviewed you about it, anyone who's talked about it, just something about your experience working on another Cabin in the Woods movie that you've never told before.
And before you answer that question, Joe, where are you? Because it looks like you are in a room from Origins. Is that right?
I am in Catherine Carmichael's room where she dies on the bed.
That's what I thought.
In
I was
House
like,
Origins.
this. I was like, there's a dead person behind Joe.
So wait. Okay, we'll take a screenshot.
I'm also sitting at the desk where Rebecca Vickers has her Zoom call. So that might happen.
Oh my God!
I was like, why is no one talking about
this?
this?
Zoom call scene was one of our favorites in Hell House 4. Oh my God! We're gonna share that. Hell House fans are gonna
great
love.
man. There's a murder in there.
Yeah. So what if you wait, Joe? We see someone behind you.
It's fine. It's fine.
They like Joe.
I've lived a good life.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Oh my God. Yeah. So you were in the.
Yeah.
Wow.
I recognized it immediately, and I was like, "Are we going to start off like this?"
You're like you are in production now for Hell House Lineage.
Week 1 just got completed. Tomorrow starts week 2, and we have 3
Are we
weeks
in the
on this.
movie?
Oh my God.
We're
Is this
in.
the Zoom call? This is the next iteration of the Zoom call.
Is there a clown behind me?
Okay. Our final question. So anything you guys can tell us about your experience working on the film that you haven't told before, even if it's a small thing. And it doesn't have to be like
Dwayne is thinking, I will give a real quick answer to this because this is something I've never said. And you talk about insensitivity with jokes. Here it is. My character, Jay, his name is Hector Manuel Gonzalo Domingo III. The reason why his name is Hector Manuel Gonzalo Domingo III and he's called Jay, it's a little poke fun at my cinematographer, Carlos Garcia de Dios, because when him and I were in pre-production, he was explaining to me how a lot of people in Spain and a lot of Spanish people's names are and how they take both their mom and their dad's last name. And the thing that I always thought was amusing is that a lot of people that I know and a lot of people that he knows has really long names, like so many different sounding names. But then you're like, I didn't even know that was that person's name. I just know them as like Jeff, or I just know them as like, so this random, like the J has nothing to do with what his name is. And that was me kind of like poking fun at that and kind of like laughing about it with Carlos.
That's funny because it is funny, but he has this incredibly long name and he's like, but you can call me Jay, which is not any of the names that he just said.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, Duane, do you have anything?
Mine isn't that cool, but I'm sure there's something that's not coming to mind right now. I do remember as we started filming, a part of what I did to get into character was I think I even had a bracelet with WWCD. And so every time I'd start a scene, I'd just be like, all right, what would Carter do? But I would just walk around everywhere and be like, what would Carter do? What would Carter do? What would Carter do?
Well, by the way, your character has one of the funniest funniest lines when Beth makes the cake and you say, like, would that taste better with titty or something? Like it was it's so random. Like, and I don't even remember what's he referring to, Joe? Like, or is that just a?
He's referring to the cake. They're asking. She's saying it's delicious. I think Trish asks, "Is it delicious?" And she's like, she asks, "Is it good?" And she says, yeah, it's fucking delicious. And Carter says, does it taste better with titty? Because the next scene is him and her eating the cake while getting ready for their sex scene.
Wow. I mean, there are some great lines with titty.
Was the name Trish a homage to Trish from Friday 13th Part 4, the final chapter?
That's exactly what it was, Tim.
That's all I needed. Thank you so much.
Bullseyes on
He
all
nailed it. Throw it on the
exactly
IMDb trivia.
Look, that right under Dumb and Dumber, Joe, we're putting Trish. That's the one. If you're going to remember one thing from this interview, it's that she had the same name as Tommy Jarvis's sister,
right?
Kimberly Beck in Part 4. Anyway, well, we hope you guys have enjoyed this wacky interview. We really have enjoyed it, and I hope that all of our listeners will check out another Cabin in the Woods movie. Again, it's on Tubi. It's on some other streaming services. You can go on. You can watch it for free. You can have a laugh, and you can tell all your friends who may be like, "Oh God, it's too scary," that it's more funny. It has the scary parts, but it's very funny. And so it can appeal to really anybody who just wants to have a good time.
Nailed it.
Did you like that? Was that a good pitch?
Yes.
Nailed it.
Thank you guys so much. We wish you nothing but the best and success with this movie. I'm sure Joe will have you on many more times in the future, and hopefully you too, Duane, because I hope you guys do another project together, and maybe it'll be another fill in the blank movie.
Joe, stay safe in that room.
Yeah, stay safe in the Hell House. Okay, well, thank you guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolute
Awesome.
pleasure.
Thanks,
This
guys.
is a blast.
Okay, bye.
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 Thanks for listening to another episode of Happy Horror Time.
If you'd like to support the podcast, please sign up to be a patron at www.patreon.com/happyhorrortime. As a patron, you get access to all our bonus content, which now includes 2 new bonus episodes every month, a monthly after show mini episode, access to our Discord community so you can chat with us directly, and the chance to review a film with us in one of our bonus episodes.
Patrons also get all our regular episodes ad-free and a day early, our monthly newsletter, the chance to vote in polls, and autographed Happy Horror Time stickers.
I'm Matt Emmert.
And I'm Tim Murdoch.
And we hope you have a happy horror time.